Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you everyone for coming. I just want to let the call to the public people know that we are recording our Zoom meeting tonight in hopes that the audio is good enough for people to hear. So this meeting won't be posted on our website, but if the audio is clear, our goal in January is to record the Zoom meeting. So just for we only have 4 people that call. We did the call to the public. Just if you can be aware that you are being recorded. And again, it won't be posted, but it is going to happen. Also, to our board members up here, since we are recording and we want to make clear to the public, when you do have a comment or discussion, if you could just state your position and your name. So again, just for kind of transparency, when we go forward, if we do have the recording going, it'd be great to know for the public who's talking, because I know that's one of the issues with the Zoom is it's confusing who's talking. So with that said, item 1B, approval of agenda items for discussion.
I move that the agenda for the December 12th, 2022 regular meeting be approved. Support.
Discussion. I do want to add to our meeting an action item with our secretary, Ms. Hellmeyer, being done with her service up in here coming up in the next year. I'd like to add action item to add a new position for chair for secretary. So I'd like to make a motion to add action item 2F, chair position for secretary. So
I second that motion.
So motion by Costa, seconded by Coleman. Any discussion on adding the chair's position?
I would just like to move that, should I move this closer?
There we go.
Thank you. That if are we nominating someone this evening? Is that what we're doing, or you?
We are, right now, we're just adding the fact that we have to choose someone. So when we get to item 2F, I'll call for people to make a nomination, and then someone has to second, and then we have to have discussion, and then we have to vote.
So I move that we wait on that because we have 2 new members starting in January that I think would change or, may be eligible to become secretary.
Okay, well, then anybody else want to have discussion on adding?
I move that we do it this evening because if I'm done on January 1st, that puts 2 weeks without a secretary. And I don't think that we're allowed to do that.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, so we're gonna vote on the motion to add item 2F, a chair position. All in favor? Oh, and I'm sorry, I also did the call to the public, because we want to be transparent and we've come with a lot of new ideas, including recording. Starting now, we are going to be doing our roll call voting as opposed to voice voting. So normally in the past, you've seen us, we've all said all in favor or opposed. So going forward, I'm just going to work from my left to my right, asking for a vote on this current motion of adding a item 2F, choosing a new chair as new secretary. Mr. Demond absent. Ms. Hellmeyer.
Yes.
Ms. Coleman.
Yes.
I'm Mr. Costa. I say yes. Ms. Glaybach.
Yes.
Ms. Shaw.
Yes.
Ms. Blondale.
Nay.
So that item passes 5-1. And then also just to show transparency for the audience, what will happen is our minutes when they're posted, it'll show who has voted on which position. So again, the public can kind of be more aware of what's happening up here, because I know sometimes the minutes are confusing or you're not sure on who is saying what. Okay, item 1C, approval of minutes from November 14th, 2002 regular meeting.
We need to go back and approve the agenda though.
Oh, I thought we approved the agenda. Oh, you're right. I'm not.
We decided to add to the
Correct.
agenda.
That's why I've got you right there.
We haven't approved the agenda.
Item 1B, approval of agenda.
I move that the agenda for the December 12th, 2022 regular meeting be approved. I support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Hemmeyer. Is there now discussion on the approved agenda? Okay, we'll go through with roll call again. Mrs. Hemmeyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yay.
Mr. Costa, yes. Mrs. Claybaugh?
Yay.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell?
Yes.
That motion carries. Okay, we're moving along. See, it's a learning curve. Item 1C, approval of minutes from November 14th, 2002 regular meeting.
I move that the minutes for the November 14th, 2022 regular meeting be approved. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Hemmeyer, support by Mrs. Claybaugh. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Hemmeyer?
Yay.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yay.
Mr. Costa, I say yay. Mrs. Claybaugh?
Yay.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell?
Yay.
That motion carries 6-0. Mr. Hughes, item 1D, superintendent's report.
Welcome, everybody. You guys got a few new changes here. I'll have to get used to it too. Again, Mr. Hughes, superintendent, for those watching via Zoom. I got to practice saying that as well. First thing I want to do is welcome Michelle to the board table. Welcome to the running of the district. I do want to say, Ms. Blondell, that I wanted to acknowledge that I really appreciated that you took time on your first time to look at the board packet, give me a call. You got a chance to ask me questions as a board member should do. My job is to make sure when you come to the table, you have all the information you need to make the decisions you need to make. And by reaching out to me, as the board members do on a regular basis, you talk with me, you also talk with Rachel to make sure that you got information financially. And that's just what good board members do. The public doesn't always see that, as you know, and you did that, and I was impressed by that, and I appreciated that. So
Thank you. You were both very knowledgeable and answered my questions, so thank you very much.
Yep.
And I'd like to know if I can just address the board with the welcoming portion of this, if that's okay, if this is an appropriate time.
that's up to Mr. Costa.
I mean, I don't think a comment would be fine. I know that like when you get your board reports and requests, like if you wanted to, if you're looking to thank the community and things of that nature, is that what you're thinking?
I just want to, I want to establish what my objectives are for the board so that as I'm voting today, everybody kind of understands where I'm coming from.
I would say that until after he finishes his report,
Okay.
because usually boards and reports and requests are things where you have something to say.
Totally fine.
That's
Thank
about
you.
right.
Yep.
Also, board, in front of you tonight, you'll have two pieces of paper. One is a multicolored piece of paper, one is the committee structure. Ms. Blondell, when Chris and I met with you for your orientation, you had made it, you had indicated that you weren't necessarily comfortable with committee structure and was it an open meetings violation and this and that. And so what Mr. Costa asked me to do is take a look at the committee structure. Typically in Heartland, and the reason why we don't violate the Open Meetings Act is that the Board of Education has never in my time, 22 years, given the committees the authority to make decisions. And that's the key on whether or not we're violating the Open Meetings Act or not, is that the committee is simply there to get information from me, the superintendent, and my team, because the board hires me to manage the district and my team helps to do that. And so what I did for the board, if you guys want to go this direction, and I ran it by Mr. Costa, is I simply outlined the superintendent administrative committees in which board members are invited to partake, to learn more about our thinking process behind why we make recommendations to the board. That's really all committees ever do. That's all they've ever done in my time. Certainly, board, if you have, if that's not true, you know, speak up, but that's what it's all about. And the key is that, again, the board in general has never given a committee the power to make the decisions for the board. Simply information, and then we make the recommendations. That's why all of the, anytime you see that we're making a recommendation on a resolution, it always says based on the recommendation of superintendent and CFO, superintendent and personnel, superintendent and curriculum. It's simply our recommendations based on the work that we do for you, the board, to manage the school district. So if this works to make you feel, the intent is to help you feel more comfortable with committees. If that's not a big deal, if we keep it the old way, that's fine. This was just our attempt to make you, we listen to you. We want to recognize and acknowledge and value the information you gave us, and hope that this helps you feel more comfortable with the establishment of the committees. So that's why we put this together, because that's how we normally do business. So I just wanted you to know that, and the board, what you have in front of you, if you have any concerns with that, reach out to Mr. Costa. Worked with Mr. Costa as the president to do this. If everything's good and he doesn't hear from you and any concerns from this, this is what we'll leave in place for posting for the public to see how committees work in Heartland. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Again, valuing the input from board members to make sure we feel comfortable moving forward. That's the key.
Can I just be added to the finance committee?
Oh, are you not in there?
No.
What did I do? Oh, I see. All right, because Tom is gone.
Thank you.
All right, Megan.
I'll be there.
All right, awesome. All right, athletic fall update, Mr. Wheeler. Last year, we started having Mr. Wheeler come and do fall, winter, and spring update. It's time. Fall sports are over. We're knee deep in winter sports, but Mr. Wheeler, it's your opportunity to talk a little bit about our fall sports program.
All
I
right.
think you're right in the middle there. You see the PDF?
I don't. What am I looking for?
Right up there in the middle. So you keep going north. There you go.
There we go. Cool.
Just
All
don't
right.
click on anything else.
Well, that's what
If you
I'm,
lose it, you're
yeah, I
really,
don't want to
really,
lose it.
really
Let me
mad.
make sure my slides move. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for having me. Welcome to our new board members. There's coming up on a new year here, and a new season is underway, but I want to just go back in time just a little bit and kind of recap our fall sports season. It was another successful season for Heartland Athletics. It was very enjoyable without a lot of restrictions, without having to worry about how many people were in our crowds, without having to worry about how our teams and players and coaches and officials and everybody got together. It was a very normal fall, and that was much welcome. If we take a look at our first slide, fall athletics by the numbers. This just gives you kind of an idea of the scope and the size of our athletic program. It's pretty impressive. In the fall, let's come off. Let's try to get rid of that. Yep. Fall athletics. In the fall, we have 9 varsity programs: football, cross country, soccer, tennis, field hockey, volleyball, sideline cheer, pom, girls golf, and girls swim and dive. So there's a lot going on in the fall in terms of athletics, a lot of opportunities for our kids. And then our middle school programs, we have 2 currently in the fall: volleyball and cross country, for 23 total teams. 463 high school participants. That's a pretty big chunk of kids if you think about it. That's as big as some of our school buildings. So we take pride in just the amount of kids that participate in our athletic programs, and then 90 participants for our volleyball and cross country programs. So not getting to the next slide. Not sure what I need to do. Oh, there we go with the mouse. There we go. All right, excellence in the classroom. Definitely, we make sure to talk to our kids about that fact that they are student athletes, and there's a reason why that word student comes first. We definitely want them to excel in the classroom first, and on the field or on the court second. Our coaches know that, and they help voice that that mission as well. Our numbers for Heartland Scholar Athlete Award winners was 64% of our total athletes. That's sophomore, juniors, and seniors. They have to complete a semester of school before they're eligible for that award. But 64% of our high school athletes were 3.0 GPA or higher. And then 40% of our high school athletes are 3.25 GPA or higher. So we're proud of that number. It's down just a bit from last year. So we'll continue to work hard and try to raise those numbers. We're working with our winter athletes right now. The nice thing about our winter athletes, their grade check happens twice right away at the beginning. We check them when they first try out for their teams, then also after their first semester of work. So we really keep an eye on their academics. All right. Something that we do every year is we celebrate all of our kids who go on and sign letters of intent at colleges or universities. Currently, we're at 10, which is real good. We've got 10 kids so far in the class of 2023 that have signed. Last year, our number ended at 36, which was a very high number, maybe the highest since I've been the athletic director. That was 7 years at that point. This is my 8th year. And it's trending to be in the 30s again. We've got several athletes who haven't signed their letter of intent yet, still trying to decide what schools they're going to, or they just haven't scheduled a signing day with me yet. But we're trending towards that number. I think that's just a testament to the talent of kid that we have walking our halls. It's really impressive. You know, we have kids go everywhere from Duke to Lawrence Tech and everywhere in between. So just a really, really impressive group of kids that we have that play for us. Chasing titles. Here's some of the main things that were great in terms of winning and some individual and team awards. Our football team made the playoffs for the 3rd year in a row. That's the first time since the playoff system was put together that Heartland has qualified 3 years in a row. So we're very proud of that. We didn't get that W. Holt got us in the first round, but we were there, had a very successful season. Something really cool for our cross country team. Sam Kronberg, Ben Smith, and Alex Cabby, they qualified to be runners at the state cross country meet. And the cool thing about Sam and Ben, if you guys remember last year when I brought Riley in and Riley was state champion, and he was one of the only kids that we have ever had that qualified for states 4 years in a row. Sam and Ben also did. So I think that's really neat that they participated in the state cross country meet 4 years in a row. That's a really cool accomplishment. And then just last week, Cameron Herman was voted the county volleyball player of the year. Cam's a budding star for us. She's only a junior. So when I talked to her to congratulate her, I said, now the pressure's on to try to win it back to back. And she's a super humble kid, very team-oriented kid. And she said, Mr. Wheeler, when we win districts and regionals, I won't care if I win player of the year. And I thought that was a pretty cool response. So Cameron's a great kid. So those are some of our big accomplishments. One big addition for this year is that we added unified soccer. I think that was really neat for anybody who's been to one of our unified basketball games, just to kind of give you guys a refresher on what unified is. Unified is when our special ed and our gen ed kids come together to form a sports team. They're on the field together, they practice together, they support each other. And it's really neat. We've always done basketball in the past, but this year we added soccer. It was super cool. We had over 50 participants. They competed in 4 different games and then a tournament at the end of the season. Super awesome addition, and we'll continue to do soccer for years to come. Mrs. DePestle, I want to give her a quick shout out. Lauren DePestle kind of heads that for us at the high school, and she does an amazing job with these kids. I know Mr. Reck also helps out with our unified program as well. Something that's I'm super glad that 5 or 6 years ago we started, and it's thriving here at Heartland. So that's basically our fall recap. I didn't know if anybody had any questions or anything like that, but like I said before, we are right in the beginning stages of our winter season, and super excited for that as well.
I don't have any questions. I just want to comment on how wonderful it is, all these different opportunities we have for the kids. And I know you mentioned it, but it even goes beyond just winning. It's just being part of a team. And I think the relationships the kids build are incredibly important. So thank you to all you and your coaches for everything they do for our kids, because it's a great opportunity for them to just grow as a person. I mean, winning is important, but just being part of a team is great. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, JD.
All right, you guys have a great night. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Renee, do you need to change anything on there? So JD doesn't mess you up?
Yeah, I don't want to.
I'm just saying, I would rather you do it than him. Not that I don't like you, JD, but, you know, I work with her every day. All right. We'll look forward to hearing about our winter success later on in the year. Happy holidays from the staff here in Heartland to our board members. Board members, in front of you, you have a little something from Renee and I, just to say thank you for all you do. If you don't know, public, Renee over here is my administrative assistant, but also basically, while we have a secretary to the board, she's like the secretary of the board, right? She does a lot. So we thank you for all that you do in supporting the work that we do here. So have a great holiday, because we won't see you after tonight, probably. We might hear from you, but unless you come in and see me, right? I mean, we're always open for you to come in and see us. And then also I want to just a shout out to Tom DeMond. Tom, this was his last board meeting, unfortunately. If you know, when we get the bond projects, you'll know that these companies are just running ragged. He was called to Grand Rapids, his company had him go to Grand Rapids, so he could not come tonight. 17 years on the board as a trustee, as a treasurer, and as a president, I think 9 of his years as president of the board. So we're gonna certainly miss Tom greatly. And I know you don't want me to, but Michelle, I have to tell you that you're gonna be missed greatly as well. At the end, we will have cake in the back, and I've got some cake cutters and celebrate their success on the board all these years and putting Heartland in a position in which we are today. So ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Item 1E, call to the public. And again, just a reminder for people speaking, you could, one, be aware that you are going to be recorded. Again, this won't be out for the public to see just yet, but we're hoping that they will be able to hear you. Please remember also, you're going to be limited to approximately 3 minutes. First card I have is Jason Ringett.
Well, Heartland Public Schools education has gone off the rails. The power of the money, the politics of the unions and special interest groups undermining our children's education. Heartland keeps pushing left-wing woke agendas of immoral sexualization, perversion, signs of LGBTQ, DEI, and rainbow signs within the schools, which is nothing more than exploiting our children and grooming our kids for pedophilia and discriminating over 99% of the students who do not support or share the same beliefs. DEI is nothing more than a reverse discrimination. You cannot use racism to eradicate racism. It's nothing more than dividing our children and turning them against each other. It's teaching Marxist ideology, teaching them how to hate white people, while the rest of the world is teaching their kids academics, math, reading, writing, science, quantum physics, and calculus. Under Chuck's leadership since 2016, Heartland Schools is no longer a premier school in academics. Heartland academics have been declining like a avalanche sliding down a mountaintop. In 2018 through 2022, Heartland school kids' proficiency scores have fallen like a meteor from outer space. It's time to start firing top-heavy administrators and start hiring educators and give them the tools and the resources to return Heartland back to a premier school in education. There must be a return to righteousness. Our nation will no longer endure. It's time to put God, prayer, the Bible, and academics back into Heartland schools. It's time that education returns to the local level with parents being involved. SEL DEI is about shaping, changing, transforming the attitude, values, beliefs of the children. SEL uses Howard Zinn's book, which is a radical Marxist ideologies, with CRT. Dr. Murray Gerber debunks his book that is implemented into SEL for brainwashing our children. It's rooted in progressive social justice ideology that divides anyone who questions the radical group's agenda. Its purpose is to separate children from God and the nuclear family, using propaganda, conditioning them. That is just a small snippet of how divisive and dangerous SEL is to our kids. The main goal of SEL programs is to move the minds of students into social engineering subjective assessments that hyper-focuses on feelings, opinions, beliefs, multiculturalism, political correctness, diversity, global warming, gender theory, and social justice. SEL-DI has nothing to do in making a child proficient in math, reading, writing, or science. It's wasting taxpayers' dollars. SEL-DEI is riddled with sexualization, grooming tactics pushed by groomers to exploit our children. Superintendent Hughes, you wanted proof from me that Biden's revision amendments to Title IX is just a guidance? It's not law. It does not give biological males access to female restrooms, locker rooms, or co-ed sports here at Heartland schools or any other schools. Well, earlier today, I emailed Heartland school officials and you proof from Florida's Department Board of Education showing that the U.S. Board of Education and U.S. Agriculture do not make laws. You might want to reread the U.S. Constitution. We have 3 branches of government. Didn't we see this before? Livingston County school officials pushing illegal quarantines, mask mandates, guidelines, recommendations on our kids in the school year 21-2022. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Len Vitella.
I'm gonna pass.
Okay. Katie Schuler.
This one? Thank you. Good evening. My name is Katie Schluter, and I'm an HHS volunteer. As a parent, I'd like to express my appreciation to HHS for offering a myriad of parent volunteering opportunities through their clubs and performance arts. It is currently my privilege to work with the altruistic student volunteers in the Junior Optimist Club and the creative kids in both the music department and drama club. For instance, last month I worked alongside Optimist students volunteering for the art fashion show to benefit children with special needs. Later this week, they will organize the HHS food donations as we attempt to assist over 90 families and over 300 kids, our largest group in need ever, during the Optimist Adoptive Family Food Drive. Food banks across the country are all down. So if anyone is looking for a holiday charity to support this week, Heartland Optimist Club would love your financial support. Many sponsors make this program possible, but this being a school board meeting event, I would especially like to thank the Heartland Teachers Association for their generous donation of $700 towards the Adoptive Family Food Drive. Just another example of how Heartland teachers care. And possibly every volunteering experience at HHS seems to be more meaningful than the last. This past weekend, I had the profound pleasure, along with 4 other parent volunteers, to accompany Mr. Usher and 18 drama club students to Lansing for the annual Michigan Education Theater Association Festival. Their students were able to see live productions and choose 8 workshops from over 90 offerings. Many of the students performed in adjudicated events as well, such as acting monologue, acting duet, solo musical theater, dance, playwriting, costume design, costume construction, scenic design, and lighting design. Of the 13 HHS entries in these adjudicated events, our students scored 1 good, 6 excellence, and 6 superior ratings, with everyone who competed scoring at least 1 excellent or higher rating. There were 29 colleges in attendance as well, and we had 2 seniors who competed in the respective categories of musical theater and lighting design. These students received offers from over 10 colleges for a combined total in offers of $525,000 in scholarships. To put this in perspective, I think the honors students in Honors Night tally a total of like $3 million in scholarships, which is amazing in itself for a school our size. But here were just 2 little theater art students with over $500,000 in offers. Our drama club is comprehensive and impactful. To my knowledge, each year about 10% of our HHS student body pool their individual talents and work cooperatively to the common goal of telling their story through creating the best production possible. Along the way, they learn real-world skills such as public speaking, building and construction, painting, writing, soundboard engineering, lighting, cosmetology, staging, pit band, background musician performance, dance, vocal performance, teamwork, leadership management, and marketing. I'd like to close by saying hundreds of our district academically creative students and their families are blessed to have the opportunity to work with Mr. Usher and his team of dedicated mentors to hone their skills. And I would like to thank this board, the administration, and Kate Gregory for their continued support of this wonderful program. Thank you.
Robin?
Hello, happy holidays, everybody. I just wanted to ask a few questions, especially since you guys are going to be talking about the high school curriculum. Before you guys decide on any of the curriculums, I just want to point out, and I'm not quite sure because I haven't reviewed all the privacy policies or anything on all the online services that you guys use. But going through some of them, like Illuminate, Illuminate sends our children's information to One Roster. And One Roster is a global company. So, and also on here, Michigan Data Hub, I don't know if the preview for them, for their status is this, they're trying this out to globally connect. I'm not quite sure about all this. I just started looking into it. But I know that we send our children's information and our own, our email addresses and everything like that to Michigan Data Hub. We also give it to Wayne Regional Education Service Agency, which I don't understand why. I mean, I get the whole connectivity and saving money, but why our children's personal data, all their school data, and our personal information is going to outside sources. I'm not quite sure how that works, but I don't recall authorizing any of my children's information to go to any of those places. And I really would like especially with the companies that we use in their contracts, it says the company's name, but then it also gives affiliates and subsidiaries. I would like to know for all the, like Illuminate, Zello, and a couple of the other ones, I'd like to know all the affiliates and subsidiaries that they're connected with so that I know for myself where my child's data and my own personal data is going, because every time you log onto the computer, they're collecting data information, they're putting cookies in and all this other stuff. So I have concerns about that. If you could provide me with some more information about, especially finding out who the affiliates and subsidiaries are, I would greatly appreciate that. It kind of concerns me that we're, the World Economic Forum was in town for the last 2 years and they're talking about, one world order and us all being connected to the Internet of Things. And yeah, I didn't authorize that for my children's stuff. So I just want to, make sure that we're kind of all on the same page. I think this, I moved to Heartland because I love this community and I didn't move anywhere else. So, I like this community. I like what it offers and I like what it has to offer. So I would like to kind of keep it that way. And I get, globally, there are some things that we all need to handle, but our own community should come first. The people in our community, we should all be taking care of each other and looking after each other. And that's all. Thank you, guys.
Aye.
Hello, I'm gonna start off by saying Merry Christmas, and I hope I'm not mistaken for a furry wearing these antlers, since a lot of people don't seem to really know what those are. But I also wanted to follow up with Happy Solstice, Happy Hanukkah, Sol Invictus, Saturnalia, Yule, Kwanzaa, and anything else that I may be forgetting.
I'm back. As a quick little refresher, I have lived in Livingston County for 37 years, in Heartland for 15. I have 3 children that will be in the district, 2 currently, and 1 that is not due to start yet, graduation date of 2040. I am here to, and I didn't think maybe I was going to need to talk today, but I guess I do. I'm here to talk about, yet again, the separation of church and state for some of our people who keep on making demands that I don't feel should be done by schools. I find it ironically laughable that some are requesting religious instruction in our schools, and these are the same people that they refer to as groomers, and they want them to teach religion. These rational, college-educated people. And what happens when their beliefs do not match yours? I mean, the flying spaghetti monster claims heaven is a beer volcano with strippers. And to be fair, their hell is the same, except for the beer is stale and the strippers have STDs. If you think this sounds silly, please compare that to a certain Jewish man having people eat his flesh and drink his blood. Like, that's not weird at all. But please do not take all that. I'm not anti-Christian, not at all. This is not you being persecuted. I fully support and defend your right to be Christian, but I'll remind you that you have your own schools to police by the law of your God in this county. When at least a quarter people of our state do not actively subscribe to any religion and 58% do not have a congregation that they affiliate with, it's not really right to take over our spaces as well. So I would like to leave you with a couple more words from our founding fathers here is John Adams, our second president. This would be the best of all possible worlds if there was no religion in it. The Treaty of Tripoli, the government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. James Madison, our 4th president, the purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe in blood for centuries. And my last and very favorite one that I will leave you with this evening is the legitimate powers of government extend to such acts that are only as injurious to others. But it does me no injury for my neighbor to say that there are 20 gods or no God. It neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg. That was Thomas Jefferson. So I will end this with happy holidays. May the flying spaghetti monster's noodly appendage bless you with all the love.
And so ends the call to the public. Item 1F, board reports and requests. So again, for our recording purposes, we're just going to test it out. I'm just going to start on my left and work my way down. If you just make sure you say your name and your position here. Mrs. Hemeyer.
Michelle Hemeyer, School Board Secretary. My fellow board members and members of our community. This evening, I have requested that I do not have a traditional farewell that is normally given to our Board of Education members when they vacate their seat. Usually that celebration is given to members when they are vacating on their own accord. And that is not the situation that I find myself in now. I have always wanted to be here. Attaining this seat is something that I worked many years for. I have proudly served this district to my fullest ability while being here. I have always been proud to say that I serve as a Board of Education member, even in the face of contentious times or difficult decision. I am proud of this community, this district, and everything that it stands for. I want you all to know that for me, this is not a farewell. I am still going to be here. I will still serve this community. I will still stand up for the 3 R's and do everything I can to protect the safety and the rights of our children and our parents. I cannot begin to thank the community, our teachers, our administrators enough for the support they have shown through this unprecedented election process that we found ourselves in. My list, quite frankly, is too large to thank all of those people that have supported, given me strength, and given me encouragement. So please just let me say thank you, and you will continue to see me doing good in our community.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yeah, I've got nothing.
Great. This Board President Costa, I just want to welcome Ms. Montiel, echoing Mr. Hughes. Also just wanted to wish the best of luck to all of our students as we wrap up here before the break, and well, the staff as well. I know we got a week and a half to go, and I can only imagine what an elementary classroom is going to be like next week. So more power to our elementary principals and their teachers. So with that, I wish everyone have a happy holiday. Mrs. Claybach.
Absolutely. Welcome, Michelle. Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy holidays. I hope everyone certainly has a restful time. It's been a crazy year. And really just reflect on what you have, the wonderful community you live in. I will have discussion items later on in the agenda, but I do want to highlight a couple of things. Many of you know I chair the adopted family program that Katie Schluter had spoke on, but we have seen an unprecedented amount of families this year. And we've also seen an unprecedented amount of sponsors. It's been fantastic. Students have taken it by the horns and done drives for various things in the school. And there's 3 students within our district, and I won't name them, but they actually developed a business and they started selling homemade crafts in order to raise money to adopt a family, and they did all the shopping for their family. And it was just tremendous that our kids think of those things and that our kids are equipped and have the support to do those. They raised more money than they needed to support a family, but it was just a true testament to the wonderful kiddos that we have here in our district. So I just want to thank you all for that. Thank you to the teachers, the administrators, to the staff, and certainly to our parents and community. We certainly wouldn't be able to do it without you.
Mrs. Shaw?
Cindy Shaw, trustee. I just want to say Merry Christmas to everyone and to teachers and administrators out there. You only have 7 more alarms to set. And then you can take a nice long break and turn your alarm off. Thank you.
Ms. Blondell?
Thank you, trustee Michelle Blondale. I want to say thank you, Michelle. You have served the community well, and we appreciate that. Just so you know that. I also just want to let the community know that, I appreciate the support that you showed during the election. It was very contentious. I want to wish all of the students and the faculty Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. And I also just want to lay out a little bit about how, so you all understand my objectives. So when you see me voting this evening or whatever, you understand where I'm coming from, because I haven't really stated much on social media or anything. So as an elected representative of this community, I will make decisions using community input, truth, common sense, and the US Constitution. The reason that we are all here is because of the students, and they are my top priority. My decisions to vote for or vote against something will be rooted in safety and fairness for all students. Safety not being limited to physical, but supplying the students with a safe curriculum, free from pressure of weighted or biased opinions. I will protect parental rights, as they are their children's first teacher, who feed their soul, intellect, and their moral compass. I will support the leadership team's continued fostering of competition, strength in character, and individuality. And I want to hear from teachers how, as a board member, I can support them to ensure that they can do their jobs to their best of their abilities. I believe with these common goals, students will want to come to school, teachers and staff will want to come to work, and our parents will be motivated to get involved. So hopefully I can represent this community with as much guidance from you as I can get. So thank you very much, appreciate it.
Item 2A, payment of invoices.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer, approves the financial report as of November 30th, 2022, and the payment of invoices totaling $3,121,041.41, and payroll obligations totaling $4,435,490.38. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Hemeyer. Is there any discussion? All right, since there's no discussion. Mrs. Hemeyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Coleman?
Aye.
I'm also yes. Mrs. Claybach?
Aye.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell?
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 2B, 2023-24 high school curriculum guide.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, approves the 2023-24 high school curriculum guide as presented and discussed.
Motion by Mrs. Hemmeyer, support by Mrs. Coleman. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion or move. I move to suspend the voting on this for several reasons. There are a lot of changes in here, and it needs to have a little more discussion. There's going to be 2 new board members on the committee, so I would like to wait for that. Also, you know, in looking at the changes that are being made, you know, I'm not going to minimize it because I know a lot goes into this. But when I'm looking at the classes that are being deleted, such as technical writing and writing for publications, removing of German, which I understand that there's no teacher, but removing of ASL, which is sign language, because the teacher is going to be retiring in a year. I feel like we could find possibly another teacher who would want to step up to do the ASL, because I know students really enjoy that. But what's a little more troubling would be that we're getting rid of technical writing and we're bringing on you know, classes such as Guitar 2. I looked up, you know, the United States of America and where they stand in the world in education systems, and we're not even in the top 10. So I feel like, you know, making sure that our curriculum supports being a top tier educational system is what I would want to vote for. So right now I'm asking to suspend this so that we can have some more conversations about this, and 2 new board members can also have their input. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion or is anyone want a second? I guess you made a motion.
Yes.
Well, but we already have a motion on the table.
We do have to,
Second motion.
I guess we have to vote on the motion to whether, so I guess we're gonna vote on whether to pass this. The as opposed, but yeah, that's correct, Mr. Hughes. So we have made a motion to vote on the curriculum. We can have more discussion. I mean, I actually have a couple of things I want to say, but since Mrs. Blondeel,
I think you have to take the discussion item was the motion being that as part of Ms. Blondeel's discussion is she's making a motion to table it. There has to be a second to table it in order for you to consider not voting on it.
I believe so.
So if there's a second, then that has to be discussed. If there's not a second, then her motion dies and you vote on it.
So I guess before, well, I guess someone can interrupt in motion to second. I know, Ms. Blondeel, this is your first meeting, and I know when Mr. Hughes and I spoke, I know, I mean, the public, maybe the public doesn't know, the opportunities to ask questions, to get input on what is happening in the process. Like, for example, I know, like at our last meeting is when the curriculum guide was just brought to us, so I know you're a full meeting behind, and I apologize for that, but the input of these classes and what goes into it is kind of driven by our staff that we have, the want for the students. Mr. Hughes and Miss Gregory and her staff put in countless hours to put in place classes that offer a bunch of opportunities, like you mentioned the Guitar 2. Well, if we've got a number of students that want to take advantage and put more into learning music, we have a 7-hour day, which I think is phenomenal. Most districts around us have a 6-hour day. Our kids are having incredible opportunities because of it. So I would be hesitant to table this at this time, knowing that there's also a deadline, I believe, Mr. Hughes, for class selection, or course selection. I know that's why we kind of, at our last meeting, and again, I know you weren't here for it, our last meeting, we kind of, when we introduced it, it was an opportunity to reach out to our curriculum director, Mr. Ninsker, or for that matter, Kate, if you had a specific question. So I would be hesitant to motion, but I believe, is there, Mr. Hughes, a deadline?
Yeah, unfortunately, we start scheduling in January. Our new year, I think I shared this in the next community life. Some people ask me, you know, when do you take a break? And the fact is that we're starting to prepare for next year come January as soon as we return. We have kids and counselors already scheduling kids to start scheduling for next year. That whole process goes all the way until I believe April, when we start staffing. It takes a long time to schedule 1,800 students. This work has to be done. That's why we start in early November, bring everything forward, meet with curriculum committee, share our thoughts. and move forward. On the ASL, Ms. Blondin, just so you know, we've been posting for an ASL teacher now for 2 years and there are none. We just can't find them. And so we can't have something offered in the curriculum guide that we can't offer and guarantee we can offer because that creates its own issues. So certainly I would be, I guess, if the board chooses not to move forward with the Mrs. Blondale's motion, I recommend that we move forward because Kate and her staff have to get going on scheduling. I'd be happy to sit down with you and Mr. Minsker and Ms. Gregory. We could all meet and we could go through all of those pieces that you have concerns on and try to answer the rationale behind each and every one of them. And I'd be happy to do that for you and our new board members when they come on board as well. And each year we get a chance to do this because that curriculum guide changes every year. It just does. So, but my recommendation is we've got to be ready to go come January. We've got to.
Can I ask a question, and it's more for just the public's knowledge? You know, German and ASL have obviously been a point that we've continued to bring up, just due to lack of support that we're able to find, you know, a teacher to teach those. But shall we down the road identify a teacher that can teach German and ASL? Obviously separately, not one and the same, I don't know, that would be a little overwhelming. But we would have the opportunity to add that back into our curriculum.
Yeah, we have the opportunity to, Ms. Gregory, if I'm speaking out of turn, you gotta tell me. I did your job for 12 years, so I do know the process. If we were to find, let's say we posted and we asked for world language or ASL preferred, like we've been doing, and we could do that, we could offer it. And then it's just up to the counselors trying to rattle the cages of students of going back and trying to find which students would want to take that class and fill it. We still have to fill the class, right, to make it go. So that's always an opportunity. We could come back to the board and say, hey, board, guess what? We just hired this English teacher that can also do ASL. We'd love to put ASL back on the books, and can we move forward with that? So that's something we could easily do anytime. It's just a matter of then beating the bushes to get the kids to sign up for the class. So.
Okay, so Mrs. Blondale made a motion to table the curriculum guide. Is there a second? Hearing none.
May I add a little bit more?
Oh, discussion, yeah,
Okay,
sure.
because you're supposed to give everybody a chance to speak and then.
No, yeah, I already know more on the motion, but yeah, we're still discussing.
Okay, so some of the other things that, you know, a little more controversial, but some of the classes are now introducing more of like sustainability and green and, you know, things like that, the climate action. And if you'll allow me to quote some of the well-known news, left-leaning news and academic sources, these are names of their articles that you can find on the website, or, you know, anywhere on the web. So BBC, the name of their article is Why Climate Change is Inherently Racist. Princeton, Racial Disparities in Climate Change. Washington Post, Climate Change is also a racial justice problem. The EPA report shows disproportionate impacts of climate change on socially vulnerable population in the US. And those are just some of the things that strike me as being something that we need to look a little bit more into, because when I say that, like, I want to make sure that curriculum is safe, I want to make sure it's fair. And when I see that, you know, there's a lot of news outlets saying that climate change is you know, something that can be racist, and then we're putting those terminology into our curriculum and doing more of that in some of these classes, it's very bothersome to me. And I just, again, I would like, you know, maybe we can table some of those classes and understand that we're not changing the name and the subject matter. But there are some things in here that I see as that I wouldn't vote yay for.
So let me try to respond because I'm trying to think, I'm assuming that you're referencing our CTE Career Tech class, in which our construction trades program.
That's one of them, yes.
In order to collect added dollars from the grants that we get through LESA, who runs the Career Tech Consortium, every course must employ a guiding body. What's the name of that, Kate? Jason, you remember? They have to have a board. What's advisory board? And the advisory board helps the instructors across the county. We don't have a shared time program, like Oakland would have an Oakland Technical Center, Washington would have a technical center. We don't have that in Livingston County. We don't have a millage, nor is the community in Livingston County willing to create a millage to have a tech center where all of this work takes place. So we all have our own programs called shared time programs. But we have an advisory board, and the advisory board is made up of people in the industry for building trades. And so they're advising the instructor to ensure that you're covering these green topics, alternative energy topics, because our students graduating from that program and going out into the workforce, they are going to encounter people that are looking for those types of products, whether it's thermal, geothermal, whether it's solar, whether it's this, whether it's that. So the advisory board gives the instructor some guidance on what type of a course should be offered. And then that is accepted by the Career Tech Consortium. We then become eligible for dollars to fund that program. So I would say that it's not the instructor or the district simply creating a curriculum. It's an advisory board of people in the trade saying, if you're going to have the class, kids have to be exposed to these concepts. And at the end of the day, the consumer is the one that dictates whether or not they choose to purchase those types of products when building a home. Like Scott, I know you have a geothermal unit, right, in your home, because you talk about it all the time. It's a choice that you make. I'm not gonna say if it's good or bad, okay, but I know he talks about his geothermal unit all the time. So it's that advisory board helping the instructors to ensure that they have curriculum that meets the standard for the industry and what people will be requiring or are asking for, and what kids may find jobs in working through. And so I would say that while there may be a concern there, the fact is the intent is to provide and expose students to what types of trades and what types of products are out there for them to get involved in beyond high school.
And Mr. Hughes, I don't have the curriculum guide in front of me. I know it was emailed to us and we looked it over, but I don't recall in that course description them mentioning climate change or racism or.
No, I'm saying that.
I don't see any of that in there. All I see is they talk about greener, sustainable living, which is, I think it's a term that people should know. I think it's a big leap to go from teaching about green building, meaning I guess more energy efficient home to climate change and to racism. I think the leap's a large one, and quite frankly, I think it's not appropriate. I don't think that's what that program is intended to do. I just don't see it unless I'm wrong. I mean, unless any other board member sees that. Because they would, so I just don't see it. For people in the audience, it really isn't that large of a document. I mean, it's several pages, it is a several pages, but it's.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It's a National Certification for Home Builders Association. I think they start an advisory committee.
It's a home building class, correct?
It says students will gain insight into future careers in construction by building sheds, barns, greenhouses, and other energy efficient and sustainable. And that stuff. So I don't think the intent is anything other than exposure. That is what they're doing to prepare them. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that is the intent of that in any way, shape, or form.
If I may, that's not the only class that will go in terms of sustainability. And again, those are the two that I cited, but there's several more in there that, I personally would look at and say, like, we're taking away learning about, like the one for the literature. And, we were reading in the 18th century and poetry and all this stuff, and it's turning into, students, oh, here it is. So, and students this is the old description, that students would be able to read and comprehend nonfiction text as well as 18th, 19th, and 20th century foundational works of American and British literature. It's just an excerpt from the old description. The new one is that it's going to be technical writing skills and strategies utilized in high school, but what they're doing is they're let's see, is this the one where they're allowing the children to pick the books? So they're no longer going to be, rooted in this 19th, 20th, and foundational works of American British literature. That's nowhere in the new description. So these are things that I wanted to know a little bit more about. Thank you for letting me, express my concerns.
For sure, and again, I didn't mean to cut you off, I would encourage you, when Mr. Hughes and I sat down, if you have questions or concerns, my first call would be to Mr. Hughes, and if he can't answer it, he's gonna direct me to Mr. Van Epps or Mr. Minsker. And if they can't answer it, I guess we're gonna find someone else, but I mean, those are all valid questions, and as a board, Mr. Hughes prides himself on, when we come up here, we shouldn't be surprised by anything he says. And I would in turn try to reciprocate that to him and his staff. I mean, the hours that they put in to prepare for some of these presentations, I think it benefit all of us if you have a question or concern, because this is your first meeting, that you reach out to them and ask them. And by all means, though, I would re-ask it here so the public knows your concern. Because I think that's fair to them, and I think it's fair to the public that they know that you are supporting their questions. Like those are valid, but I would encourage you to, like I said, to ask prior, because I think a lot of these answers about like the English class, like I don't have that answer on. I believe at the meeting that I was in that Mrs. Gray, you talked about, there was one staff member that's retiring and that was their passion, and the new staff member coming in, like I don't know the ins and outs of that English class, but I know that going forward, if you had a question, if he can't get it, he's gonna find the answer for you from one of his staff. So that's what I would encourage. Okay, so there's a motion to table. Is there a second? Okay, so moving forward with this then. So all in favor of the high school curriculum guide, I'll start down on my left. Mrs. Hemmeyer.
Aye.
Mrs. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Constan, yes. Mrs. Glaybach.
Aye.
Mrs. Shaw.
Aye.
Mrs. Blondeel.
Nay.
That motion carries 5-1. Item 2C, revised policies. So I would encourage whoever's going to read it to read them individually like last time. Is that what we're thinking?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Maybe have some discussion items.
correct.
All right, I recommend that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of personnel and student services, adopts revised policy 9150 school visitors as presented. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Hemmeyer. Discussion.
So this policy, those of you who were at the last board meeting know that I asked to table this policy just so we were comfortable with the verbiage as it pertains to actually sex offenders. So just for the knowledge of those of you in this room, the state of Michigan does not require sex offenders to register with the school district, which is obviously very concerning. Those of you that may be concerned can probably help us to potentially change some of that in the future. And advocate for a change on that respect. And so we really needed to tie in our visitor policy as it pertains to what we would do, shall we identify someone was attempting to be involved and or be involved in their child's education, attend an extracurricular activity, those types of things. And so we're trying to be very careful with this verbiage. And I was able to have some great conversation today around that. And am actually requesting that we table it again. And I think that there's a couple of things, for those of you who may be interested, and I'm happy to provide some copies. There was a bill, House Bill 5679 that was introduced that indicates that technically sex offenders are allowed to participate in their child's education. But it's in respects to really 3 key areas, and I think we need to create those guardrails in those 3 key areas. They're allowed to transport their child to and from school. They are allowed to attend an event sanctioned by the school if the child is participating. And then they are also allowed to be on school property to meet with an employee of the school regarding the child that's enrolled at the school. So really what our goal is to prevent anyone that kind of doesn't fall into those from interacting within our district. Another component to this that I think from just a transparency standpoint is since they don't have to report it to us as the district, many of you, I know, parents there's been a lot of discussion about our visitor policy, and one of our policies actually indicates that if you would like to be in our district and not supervised directly by a principal or a teacher, that you actually have to have a background check. And so this would allow us to enforce really not allowing an individual that this may come up in a background check to move forward to be unaccompanied, certainly in our district. And so I think we still have some verbiage to work around to ensure that it matches the guardrails, because ultimately we want to protect our students, and we want to do so within the confines of what we're expected to do, but at the same time create a safe environment. And so really just wanted to have that
Something
discussion.
to yours?
Yes.
As I recall, the reason why we tabled it is because uncomfortable with the language. Here's the problem, of course, that we find is that the Sixth Circuit, and then garnered through the legislators and Governor Granholm, have indicated that it is unenforceable to have a rule in place that says that sex offenders cannot be on campus within 1,000 feet of the school, or whatever definition you want to put. The fact is it was ruled unenforceable. And so Neola, who we use to ensure that we are following policy, has said, hey, you've got two choices. Your first choice is to do nothing and hope that you don't have sex offenders in your buildings, or you do something and create some verbiage that says, hey, if you happen to be a sex offender on the registry, you have to register, and you can attend your child's activity with the superintendent's permission, with some things put in place, like the principal has to be with you the whole time, or we have to assign a chaperone to you or something, so that we know about it. Now, would we always know about it? No, unless, if it's a basketball game at the high school, we're not gonna know necessarily unless someone brings it to our attention, and then at that point, we know, we reach out and say, hey, we gotta do something. So the policy is intended to have something in place that says, hey, if we know that you're a sex offender, there's rules. If you self-report to us that you're a sex offender and you have a child in the school and want to do activities, there's rules. That's the whole purpose of this. So I want to make sure that's clear why this is even sitting at this table today, okay?
So I would also like to add, though, like you mentioned, Mr. Hughes, how can we possibly stop someone coming to a football game? How do we possibly know who's sitting up in the stands? At the end of the day, we want to keep all of our kids safe. And in my opinion, I don't know, going back and reworking, I know Mrs. Glayback mentioned she wanted to table this, reworking the paragraph again, because as it reads, it states that if you are a registered sex offender, the expectation is that you will notify us that you're going to be on campus. You'll contact the superintendent regarding your visit. And like you said, limited to entering, when they're checking in, how they're approved, how they're escorted, time, event, limits on time on campus. I think it speaks for itself. And I know, I don't want anybody obviously around our kids, but I think going back and adding more to this, I don't know how it would help. And I know other districts don't even have school visitor policies. They have volunteer policies, which we have, which I think are important. Like you said, background checks. So if someone's going to volunteer in our schools, who is this individual? But to think we can limit who's going to show up at a football game or a basketball game simply by putting more into this paragraph, I think unfortunately, I don't think it's going to help. And I'm not opposed to adding some of what Mrs. Glayback said, but I think at this point, even if we did that, it's not gonna stop some individual that is gonna do this. They're not gonna self-report. So it'd be my opinion not to table it, but I'm interested and open to hear what other board members have to say.
Well, I'd like to make a comment, because Megan and I did discuss this today, because while I don't fully think that nobody is gonna be looking at our bylaws or policies and following, I don't think that's enforceable. So then the idea would be that we're putting it on there to make sure that we cover ourselves. But the whole idea of even allowing it, you know, the reason why I want to second her motion is because I feel like we, as a self-governing body here, there's no laws saying that we need to let a sex offender on our property around our children, because we don't want that. We don't want one children, like you said, and like Megan, you know, this is the reason it's here, is we don't want any children to be in danger of anybody. So, you know, I think that we need to explore other avenues, and if we're allowed to say, you know, any registered sex offenders are not allowed on our property or something, like, I don't know if that's, you know, because there's no law saying that we have to let them here. There's no law.
There's no law, you're right. However, there's nothing that's enforceable. So the reason why Neola is saying, hey, you have to have something, like, don't put yourself in a position where you have nothing. If you read the old policy on the strikeout, that really is all we had. And so they're saying you have to have something, because if you don't have something that you can turn to say, hey, Mr. Hughes, you're violating, you know, this idea because you're on this registry. I'm not, by the way, but you're on the registry, you got a problem, we gotta talk. Anything that we put in here that says you can't is unenforceable.
Well,
It's
this is
just
unenforceable as well.
Well, it's enforceable if we know about it, right? At least we have something captured that says, okay, we know about it. You have the right to be on campus with your child, to attend your child's events, to talk to your child's teachers, right? The parent's right, whether they're a sex offender or not, has a right to be involved in their child's education. So this gives us some room to say you can come with these stipulations if you self-report. So seriously, to be honest with you guys, I don't care what it says. If there's a fallback that we can at least say, hey, I now know you are, and you're gonna have to jump through these hoops in order to participate. That's the bottom line, because you're right. How do I know? I'm not checking 3,642 parents, you know, sets of parents to figure out who is and who isn't. I can't, right? It's impossible. So I don't care if it's tabled one way or the other. I think that what it has to be is something in place that says, if we know about it and we can publish it, like we could take this statement and we could say to our principals, you publish it in the newsletter at the beginning of the year every year, or you publish it 3 times a year in your school newsletter, so that if there are parents out there that fall under this category, they are at least made aware of it. I mean, again, that's just my opinion, but it's only here because we have to do something. I do not recommend doing nothing.
Any other discussion? Okay, so there was a second motion to table, so we're gonna vote on whether to table this again. So this is a vote to table. Where am I write this? Mrs. Hellmeyer? Oh, no, I'm asking you if your vote is to table. I'm gonna do a roll call vote if you care to table, because it was seconded, correct?
No.
No to table. Mrs. Coleman?
Sure. Yeah. Aye.
My vote is no to table. Mrs. Blaylock?
Aye.
Yes. Mrs. Shaw?
No.
No. Mrs. Blondeel?
Aye.
So the vote is 3-3, so that motion dies. So now what we'll have to do is we have to vote on the item as it is. Now, with that said though, and Mr. Hughes, because I know I spoke to you this afternoon, right now, if we wanted to add anything at all to this, we have that opportunity, or we vote on it as is?
If the policy dies.
Well, the
because-
motion died.
Well, the motion died, but now you're going to vote on whether or not you're gonna adopt the policy as written. If it dies, then it reverts back to the old policy, which is a strikeout, which is nothing. So you've in essence voted to leave it as is and do nothing with it, is what you voted on. I'm just saying that's the reality. So the motion was to table it, to work on it some more. That died, 3-3. The motion now has to be, because it's on the agenda, are you going to do something? Now, if you do something and you want to bring up a motion to bring it back, or someone wants to say, hey, let's work with Mr. Hughes so that we can craft something and bring it back, we at least have something as placeholder right now. It's there, it's placeholding, there's something in place. We can work on bringing something back later. It's not been tabled, it's been voted on, there's something in place, it's better than what it was. And we'll try to fix it up to make it better and bring it back.
Then we could add additional ramifications.
Correct.
I guess my point is, well, I understand that they're allowed to be involved in their child's education. Sorry, I don't know if it was discussion, I just started discussing.
I think you should discuss it. I encourage you to discuss it,
But
please.
In theory, if there's a sex offender who wants to attend a high school football game, I get it, that we wouldn't know unless, you know, we did a background check, or unless, you know, they self-reported, and they don't have a football player, they don't need to be at the football game. Or if they, you know, wanna come to the Halloween parade at the elementary school and they don't have an elementary schooler, they don't need to be at the Halloween parade.
And I agree, I think that would be more of a volunteer, I mean, just in like at an elementary level, like, you know, to get into a building. That's why I personally feel, I think it speaks for itself. It says if you're gonna be here, you need to follow A, B, C, and D, like, if that's what you choose to do. I don't think tweaking it would help it. I mean, again, it's a different situation if you're actually volunteering. Like, if you're gonna volunteer, and you're gonna be in the school. I would be adamant that we would add more to it, but I don't, in my opinion, I don't think adding more would do anything. But again, I'm one person, one vote, so if the rest of the board feels.
So here, let me read this. If you look at, I had sent the board, Doe versus Snyder 2, the lawsuit, right? And it basically said that the Sixth Circuit ruled that exclusion zones, which is what you're talking about. You don't have a kid, you shouldn't even be here. That's an exclusion zone. Exclusion zones limiting where registrants can live and work, retroactively lengthened registration periods. Exclusion zones and certain other zones are unconstitutionally vague and violating the First Amendment, and held that the registrants cannot be prosecuted for inadvertent violations of this. And it goes on to say at the end, Doe 1 found that SOR's exclusion zones, loitering provisions, and certain reporting requirements were unconstitutionally vague and therefore unenforceable. So the problem is that having an exclusion zone, for the purpose of having an exclusion zone of, if you're not a parent, you cannot be there. The fact is, that's not going to be enforced. Law is not going to enforce it. No one's going to enforce it.
If I may, I understand it's not enforceable, but it's setting a boundary, right? So that's what I think it does. It sets a boundary that we don't want you around our children because we don't want to put one at risk. So I say we try to add something like that in there. If we're going to be protecting our children, you know, we really need to step outside a little bit. And, you know, I'd rather have somebody come at us and, you know, start challenging us than have somebody tell us something happened to a child, right? So
as long as we understand that piece of it, as long as I understand that there's an unenforceable building, it's unenforceable to have an exclusion zone. So as long as you understand that, you can do what you want. You know, you're the board, you can make whatever policy you want. So right now you're sitting at a, the motion to table was 3-3 tie, it's a 0 vote. The motion to accept the policy as currently written. We did have input into the policy, right, Megan? Right, so you can vote on that. If that passes, that at least goes in here for the time being as a placeholder. If Megan and Michelle or whoever, we want to move forward and write them things and come back to the board at a later date to say, hey, we've cleaned this up a little bit, we'd like to replace policy 9150 with this, then you work with Chris, get it on the agenda, and then moves forward. I think that to me is the savior of this right now, based on the 3-3 no vote on table.
I agree.
So,
Any other discussion before we vote on this as it stands? Mrs. Claybaugh, you look like you're gonna say something.
No, I just want to bring forward the volunteer, you sparked a thought in my head.
Okay.
Of making sure that we also include it in the volunteer policy, to exclude the ability to volunteer with some of this verbiage.
Mr. Hughes, can you?
yeah,
make a
we
note
work
of
on
that,
that.
Mr. Schiff?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Claybaugh. All right, so we're gonna vote for it as it stands. Mrs. Hemmeyer.
Aye.
Mrs. Coleman.
Aye.
Myself, I'm a yes. Mrs. Claybaugh.
Aye.
Yes. Mrs. Shaw.
Aye.
Mrs. Blondeel.
Aye.
That motion carries. One other revised policy.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of personnel and student services, adopts revised policy 1410.01 compensation and longevity schedule as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Claybaugh. Discussion.
I do have a discussion point. So I'm looking at this, you know, I move that we revisit this a little bit later when we understand, because it doesn't, you know, I'm looking at the base salary, and I guess I need to understand this a little bit better, but it says, you know, year 1 is your base salary, year 2, you get 1%. So you get 1% for 5 years, and then on your 6th year, you get $2,000. 1% isn't really, I know I haven't looked at the budgets yet, but I want to revisit this because, and I know that's not what the changes are, you're changing some individuals that listed on here. But I would like to understand this base salary, because if, you know, if we're gonna have a quality staff, and, you know, we need to provide them with every reason to stay here. And we need to give them incentives, and, you know, I'm looking at 1%, to me, that's not an incentive. So I just feel like if we want to be, you know, top-notch district, we need to make sure that we retain good employees. And this, to me, is was a little less than, but, you know, so I'd like to revisit this, and I don't know if I can reject this change, or if I bring this to another, you know, to change this policy, or if this is something that was negotiated. But that's what I see in this policy change.
I think Mr. Hughes can speak.
Let
to
me
some
explain. It's actually, if you go to page 2 of the policy,
Mhm.
you'll see the compensation schedule may change year to year depending on district financial conditions and the measures necessary to ensure fiscal responsibility. Administration will periodically review market value. This policy is linked to the administrative policy, which is linked to a formula based on the fall count and money received per child, per pupil. So this year, all of these individuals got their 1% in July. Some individuals, if you notice the marks on there, that's why we're adjusting them, because this is the policy, Michelle, that in your 2 or 3 years sitting out in the audience, you might have seen come forward many times. This policy covers all the people that are not in unions, that are non-representative. So it changes constantly. And what we've done is, some people got 2% in July. This fall, they also got 2%. Everybody in this policy got 2% this year, unless they were brand new hires, and we just hired them at a certain salary, so that's their first year, so they didn't qualify. So everybody on this policy did not just get a 1%, they got a 3% increase this year, and some people got 4%. Some of these individuals are taking off, like transportation and mechanics, because we've negotiated with those groups, not negotiated, we've worked with those groups to create their own schedule that keeps them moving forward as well. And again, this is one of those policies that changes constantly, because we're always trying to take care of that group that's not represented. Because we know we have to retain and attract them. We know that. And so I would be, again, this is one of those things, come in, sit down with me. I got this binder, it's called salaries. I can walk you through each and every one of these individuals and what that looks like, to make sure that they have a competitive salary each and every year that we're working with these people. So so it's a good question, but it's a question that I can easily answer.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
yep.
Any more discussion? Okay, and I do want to thank Ms. Bundeel though for pointing out the fact that we want to retain all of our valuable employees here, and they do deserve as much money as we possibly can provide for them. I think that's a great point. All right, with all that said, if there's no more discussion. Mrs. Helmeyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Coleman?
Aye.
Myself, I'm a yes. Mrs. Claybaugh?
Aye.
Mrs. Shaw?
Aye.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 2D, bond bid package approval.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent and Director of Operations, approves bond bid packages 6E, 6G, and 8 as presented. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Helmeyer, support by, was that Mrs. Shaw?
It was me.
Mrs.
sorry.
Claybaugh.
You were low on that.
I know,
Boy,
I'm sorry. It's a frog in my
You
throat.
need water.
Discussion.
Me again.
Okay.
So looking at this, Chuck walked me through this, but what I still am uncomfortable with is the largest portion of this bond. So just so the community knows that we're $1 million over budget. I understand that it was set in 2019, but it's quite an increase for this project. And I'm a little uncomfortable with approving because $2.4 million of the project, we only got one bid. I can't understand how a company wouldn't want to bid on $1 million job or $1.4 million job. So we only have one bid for this and we're $1 million over budget, which means that we have to shift some other bond money over to this. So, you know, I just wanted to let you know, that's why I'm uncomfortable with it. I think we need more quotes. And I understand that Chuck sent me a list of individuals that got the quote and opened the quote or didn't quote or something. But there's a reason. We need to understand the reason people aren't bidding on this, because we need to have competition and we need to be, you know, fiscally responsible. And $1 million over budget is a lot. And I understand Chuck said that, you know, the quote last year, it was $400,000 higher. But that doesn't mean that we should accept this $1 million and not get more bids. So I'm of the school of thought that we need to understand why they didn't bid on it. And, you know, the majority of this bond is only has one bid.
This is Chuck Hughes, superintendent again. I got to practice doing that. I forgot the last couple of times. Michelle, there's a couple more things as I sent you all the backup information the other day, and again, I appreciate the conversation. I thought it was a good conversation. A couple other things that I have come to realize, and I was talking to Rachel today as well. There's a couple things. Number one, right now, all of the construction companies out there in the districts that we're talking to are running into the same problem. And the reason why they're getting single bids is because these companies don't have the manpower or the time to do these jobs, and they're not even trying to bid them. So we've been cautioned that we're going to get a lot of bids at a lot of projects that might get one bid companies, just because they just can't do them and they're not willing to even take the time to bid them. So we have to look at that. The other thing is when we go through the bid package, we work with Bart Mallow, who is our supervisor, to say, is this even reasonable? Is this even close? If it's even close, we also have this other issue. And Rachel, jump in if I need your help here. The other issue is, keep in mind that Treasury approved our bond projects, and our bond projects say that you have to spend 80% of your bond project within 3 years. Many of these dollars are coming out of Series 1. We had 2 series, we broke it apart. And because we're in year 3 this summer of Series 1, if we don't spend it, we're in jeopardy of Treasury saying you didn't do the work that you said you were gonna do. So we've got to move forward on these projects. And unfortunately, electrical and mechanical are not just one project. They cover the scope of the whole project. Lights here, lights there, lights in this building, lights in the commons, like at the high school, in the media center, in the PAC. There's all kinds of pieces that no projects can go forward if these two companies don't do the mechanical and the lighting. So you're in a bind, we get it. It stinks, it costs money. Our bonds are, we've been saying this from day one, unfortunately, with the economy and inflation and shortages of manpower, they're high. And we're not in a position when we can say to a company, you're gonna do it for this amount of money, or you're not gonna do it, give or take 5%. Some companies can do that, like Walmart, right? They can say, you're either gonna give it for this or we're gonna go someplace else. We have to say, what does it take to get this job done? So there's a lot that goes into it, and I think with this is, we're asking you to trust that we vetted this with Bart Mello, we vetted it to the best of our ability to say, we gotta move forward on these projects, this is what it's costing. It stinks, but we gotta get these projects done. So I wouldn't want to be building a house right now, let's put it that way. So.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes, for that clarification. I think it was also nice for the public to hear the answer and the explanation why we are bidding and spending the way we do on these objects. So I think it's a great question, Ms. Montiel. I'm glad that you asked it. Any other discussion? Okay. Mrs. Helmeyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Coleman?
Aye.
Myself, I'm also a yes. Mrs. Glaybock?
Aye.
Mrs. Shaw?
Aye.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Based on time constraints, aye.
That motion carries. Item 2E, bus replacement.
I move that the board. Go ahead.
I recommend that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the director of operations, approves the bus replacement as presented.
It's motion by Mrs. Glaybock, support by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion? Mr. Hughes, I know normally Mr. Marino comes up and talks about our bus replacements. This is the normal time that we're cycling through, correct?
Yes, it's a normal cycle through. We'll get about 9 to 10 years out of our buses, so we got to keep cycling them. Our buses take a lot of abuse on 93 square miles, a lot of dirt roads and whatnot. And I just want to say to the public, if you want to drive $100,000 machine, please sign up to be a bus driver in Heartland. You can get on and drive $100,000 machine. So we'd love to have you because we need drivers.
Good plug, Mr. Hughes. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Helmeyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Coleman?
Aye.
Myself, I'm also a yes. Mrs. Glaybock?
Aye.
Mrs. Shaw?
Aye.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 2F, election of secretary.
I would like to nominate Cindy Shaw for the position of secretary. Support.
So nomination by Mrs. Helmeyer, Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Coleman. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, then we will vote for Mrs. Shaw. Mrs. Helmeyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Coleman?
Aye.
I myself am a yes. Mrs. Glaybock?
Aye.
Mrs. Shaw?
Aye.
Mrs. Blondeel?
For voting on this, aye.
That motion carries. Congratulations, Mrs. Shaw, on this secretary starting in January. Item 4A, future meetings, January 9th, the new year, 6:30 right here in the boardroom. Oh, I missed the bylaw, my bad, I apologize, sorry, folks, you thought you were leaving. Item 3A, revised bylaws for discussion. So I just, before Mr. Hughes, if he's going to speak to this, so our bylaws, as we go back and look through them, which there's pages, I think a lot of them need small adjustments to come in line of more of what we're doing, the practices that we have set in place. So there was one that currently was sent out to you, I think that needs to be adjusted, and at this point, quite frankly, I talked to Mrs. Glayback, I think there needs to be additional change to it as well. As I go over the next month with Mr. Hughes, we're both gonna be looking at other potential board bylaws that just don't fit our current practices. And quite frankly, I've never dug through the 300-page document, page by page itself, so. Well, I plan on doing that, so if you as board happen to notice anything that you feel is something that's way out of line of how we should be handling ourselves up here, please reach out to me, so I can reach out to Mr. Hughes, so we can try to put in line more of what we're doing up here. So.
I do want to, just so the public knows, the bylaws are not, they're nothing to do with me. It's how you govern yourselves. Like the Board of Education, the bylaws at the beginning of the policy manual is how you govern yourselves. So this is how you guys do business. And what I can help Chris with is how have we always done business, like our committee conversation. Never has a board given committees that right to make policy or decisions. Here's a situation where in my time in the district for 22 years, never has anybody other than the president called a special meeting or at one of these meetings saying, hey guys, we need a special meeting. Are you guys okay with it? Everybody goes, yeah. Like, so I think that's probably one that says this puts it into perspective of how we've always done business. And then I can work with Chris and Renee to make that bylaw change and how you guys govern yourselves. So I don't have a stake in it, except for that Renee and I have to make sure it gets in the system and updated. I definitely would recommend that you all read the bylaws if you haven't already and get with Chris on anything you see as inconsistent with how we've always done business that you know of. And with new board members, you guys have more knowledge because you've been here, some of you've been here longer. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, the only thing, and I briefly discussed this with Chris, but for the rest of you and certainly for the public, around special meetings is ensuring that we have a quorum. You know, Chris, you're really good at communicating and that's wonderful, but for future presidents or future folks that might take that seat, you know, we can't have a special meeting with an N of 1 or an N of 2. And so I would, you know, it needs to ensure that we are flexible, to make sure that the majority of the board can be there and be represented versus holding a special meeting with 1 or 2 folks.
Correct, yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. So Chuck, I did plan on calling you later on this week to talk about, yeah, because I know Mrs. Litvak and I were talking about, well, while I may call for the special meeting, a quorum has to be accepted at that time, because it wouldn't make a lot of sense to do that. So that was something I was gonna reach out to.
So you just let me know so that Renee knows so we can adjust this or however you want to present it at the next meeting.
Sounds
Fair
good.
enough?
Sounds good. Any other discussion on that? Now, item 4A, future meetings, January 9th, 2023. Happy New Year to all there, and then February 13th, 2023, 6:30 for both times. Item 4B, informational items. Does anybody have anything?
I have one. We're gonna have cake. Renee's gonna move the cake to the back and we're gonna have help. We're gonna split up so nobody can leave without taking a piece of cake. Because if it stays here, I eat it. So everybody has to have a piece of cake. Thank you.
With that, we are adjourned.
Renee has to figure this out first, though, Chuck.